I'd like to share my experience dealing with a challenging situation involving my mother-in-law, Lily. I must preface this by acknowledging that this topic might be sensitive for some, and I apologize if it offends anyone. Lily has exhibited clear signs of racism, particularly towards individuals with a different skin color than hers. Unfortunately, this has become evident in her treatment of me, her daughter-in-law. To provide some background, I am a 28-year-old woman married to my long-term boyfriend, Zachary, whom I met during our post-graduation at a management college. I am of Indian origin but was born and raised in Boston, while Zach is a white American. Ethnicity became a concern when Zach and I got serious about our relationship. Lily, my mother-in-law, had reservations about our union due to this difference. Despite her initial attempts to appear accepting, her true feelings of disdain were palpable. She would make comments about my ethnicity, emphasizing that it was the color of my skin that bothered her. Initially, during our dating phase, she seemed less aggressive about her disapproval. However, as the years passed and she witnessed our commitment to each other, her discomfort grew. She would openly address me using derogatory terms, even in the presence of Zach. This negativity escalated when Zach began discussing our future together. Lily's animosity extended beyond verbal remarks to mocking me directly, criticizing everything from my choice of clothing to personal habits. Despite being as American as she is, she consistently categorized white Americans as us and we, while referring to people of color as they. Eventually, Zach reached a point where he stopped visiting his family during festivities and special occasions due to Lily's behavior. While I valued family connections, I couldn't be happy with Zach cutting ties, as I cherished my own family deeply. Initially hesitant about marrying into a family where I felt unwelcome, Zach helped me understand the importance of setting boundaries and ensuring that our choices were respected. Even though my parents shared my concerns, Zach's father emerged as a supportive figure, assuring my parents that I would be loved and respected in the family. Despite Lily's disapproval, Zach's father emphasized that the decision to marry someone should be his, urging her to respect his choices and back off. I anticipated that she would cause a disruption at my wedding, but thankfully, everything went smoothly. Prior to the event, I was quite stressed, but my father and mother-in-law assured me they would handle her, and they did. She behaved courteously with my parents and guests, leading me to believe she had moved beyond my skin color and accepted me. To my surprise, however, she seemed stuck on that issue. In an effort to minimize interaction with her, we distanced ourselves. Nevertheless, my father-in-law continued to visit regularly, and I developed a strong bond with him. Lily, on the other hand, proved to be persistent. Despite our decision to stop visiting her, she started showing up at our house unannounced. Eventually, we felt obligated to host her, considering she was Zach's mother, and we couldn't be rude. What bothers me most is that every time she visits, she inquires about our family planning. I tried evading the question, claiming we haven't thought about it yet, but her response is always a vague good. I'm unsure whether she wants us to have children or not, and it's become increasingly difficult to interpret her intentions. I approached Zach about this, but he dismissed it, insisting she's merely curious. The problem is she never brings up the topic in front of him, making it challenging to convey the discomfort I feel from her body language and tone. It's more than just a general inquiry, and I find it unsettling. Recently, during her visit, I caught her searching through my bedside table drawer. It was a bizarre and creepy incident. I was occupied with a client call and informed her it would take about 45 minutes. She seemed fine with it, but when I later discovered the call had ended prematurely, I went to look for her. She had disappeared. Upon returning to the study to retrieve my phone, I heard scrambling noises from my bedroom. Zach wasn't home at the time, and upon entering the room, I found Lily near my bedside table, frantically searching through the drawer. Startled by my presence, she claimed to be looking for a vaporizer due to a cold. I offered her one, but she didn't use it, insisting she would check with my doctor later. Strangely, she didn't exhibit any signs of illness during her stay, making me recall previous instances where I had noticed my closet tampered with and my belongings displaced. Until now, I hadn't paid much attention to those occurrences. Looking back, I can't ignore the fact that during most of Lily's visits, she was at my house. It seems too frequent to be a mere coincidence. The problem is, while it's concerning, I can't bring myself to tell Zach. It's not that he wouldn't understand, but to him, it doesn't seem creepy that his mother was searching for a vaporizer in my drawer. I lack enough evidence to prove my observations, and I'm unclear about what she's even up to. Any advice on how to deal with this? Do you foresee anything? I just want to be alert before I'm caught off guard. Update number 1. Hey everyone, thanks for helping me break down Lily's intentions. If it weren't for you guys, I would have taken forever to figure out what she's up to. I made a list of all the possible things Lily could be behind, and the top assumption that made the most sense was a baby. I connected the dots, considering how she used to ask about having children and then started searching through my bag, closet, and drawer. She must be checking if we use protection, finding them in any of these places, and being reassured that we're not planning children yet. I know it's common for grandparents to expect grandchildren, but in that case, she could have asked us to plan instead of sneaking around. These were my assumptions, and as soon as you suggested it, I started playing around with her to confirm my doubts. I hid my pills and his protection in a different place, not accessible to her. I was careful with my bag and closet when she visited my home. Also, I started playing with my words while talking to her. The next time she asked if we were planning a baby, I blushed and said, "Yeah, we're kind of planning." The expected reaction should have been a positive one, but hers was, "No way, it's too early. You guys should enjoy your life first. The baby can wait." I've never heard a mother-in-law say this. It wasn't even advice, it was more of an instruction. Currently, I'm just enjoying this drama, teasing her that we're planning for a baby and relishing her reaction. I know it's a concern that she doesn't want us to have a baby, and I don't know why. Or maybe I do. I'll probably update you when I have more details about her intentions. This was just a quick update for everyone to have a good laugh, thanks to those who have been checking on my last post. Update number 2. Hey guys, this is going to be a longer one. I finally figured out Lily's intention behind all these creepy activities. After a month of teasing her that we were planning for a baby, she finally spoke out. One day, she visited us, and Zach was also home. We were 3 sitting together. I said, "Zach, do you know Mom had been insisting me not to have children?" Now, Zach was like, "What?" Lily also turned pale. Zach asked her why she would suggest that, and she ran short of words. I said, "Mom thinks that we should enjoy our life more and children would just destroy our peace and privacy." Mind you, Zach loves children. It was I who was pushing the plan of the baby to the next year. Zach wanted it now. Lily tried to cover up and say, "Yes, I was suggesting it for your own well-being. Enjoy your youth." Zach said he had enjoyed enough, and now he wanted a baby. You know, I could have informed Zach about it earlier, but the joy of having a face-to-face confrontation was too tempting. It led to a heated argument between Zach and Lily, escalating to the point where she turned aggressive. Lily asserted that if we truly wanted to have a baby, we should opt for traditional surrogacy. She justified this suggestion by claiming that pregnancy is difficult for women, citing her business and career as factors that would be adversely affected. According to her, not only would my work be impacted, but Zach's business would also suffer because he would have to take care of me. She insisted that we could afford surrogacy and encouraged us to go for it. I was perplexed. I knew she couldn't be genuinely kind and considerate. Her suggestion of surrogacy wasn't about our work and well-being. Zach, in response, remained calm, agreeing to consider the idea. Lily, thinking that we were immediately planning for a baby, showed up a few days later. This time, she deliberately checked Zach's availability, claiming she had something important to discuss. To my surprise, she brought a list of top places providing surrogacy facilities and had shortlisted women offering surrogacy. As if that wasn't enough, She also had a list of female egg donors, shortlisting two with the best genetic features. Zach and I were taken aback. I used a punching bag to calm my nerves, while Zach lost his temper, yelling at her for being nosy in our lives. He firmly stated that it wasn't her business to interfere in our lives. Lily insisted that her motive was well-intentioned, but I continued to probe. I questioned the need for an egg donor when I was fertile enough. Finally, she blurted out, "Your egg is going to have a brown baby. I cannot let you guys color our genes." The outrageousness of her statement left us in shock. Zach would have resorted to physical confrontation if she wasn't his mother. Lily stormed out, giving me a look that suggested I had ruined her relationship with Zach. I didn't care. I had to bring this to Zach's notice. A few days later, she sent a sorry card to Zach, but he refused to speak to her. Despite her attempts to mend the relationship, he remained firm. She even visited his office with flowers, but Zach did not forgive her. She's now trying to fix her relationship with Zach by being extra sweet to me, but she hasn't apologized to me. In reality, she had belittled and offended me. Fortunately, Zach defended me so firmly that I didn't need to intervene. I hope she learns her lesson and refrains from interfering in our personal life. I'll keep you updated if anything develops. Update number 3, guys. Lily doesn't seem to have learned her lesson. I apologize for not updating this often due to my hectic schedule, but I appreciate the supportive space here. I feel safe sharing these events with you. Following the confrontation, Zach ceased communication with his mom. Despite her attempts to reach out, he remained silent. Lily resorted to sobbing to my father-in-law, expressing remorse for her words and expressing a desire to mend everything. My father-in-law, a principled family man, holds significant respect from all of us. He reached out to Zach, urging him to forgive Lily. Zach, influenced by his father's values, forgave his mother but established a firm boundary against her interference in our lives. Lily pledged not to meddle, expressing guilt and a desire to spend time with us to cope. Although Zach and I spent minimal time at home due to work, parties, or vacations, we allowed Lily to stay. Amid discussions about children, Zach and I decided to start planning for a baby immediately. Despite our efforts, my cycles came and went with no positive results after 3 or 4 cycles of trying. Concerned, we consulted a doctor, repeating tests for genetic issues and psychological barriers, but nothing surfaced. The doctor advised us to keep trying for at least a year. A visit to a fertility counselor revealed the challenges some women face after years of trying, providing a glimmer of hope. While Lily lived with us, she did not intrude, and I kept the fertility struggles from her, attributing my stress to work. As therapy proved ineffective, I stumbled upon something suspicious: Lily tampering with my morning juice. I witnessed it and confirmed my suspicion with my maid's involvement. I promptly disposed of the juice and realized that the lack of side effects indicated a connection to my birth control pills. I refrained from eating or drinking anything separately and considered revealing this to Zach. Lacking evidence, I consulted a doctor friend who suggested avoiding revenge at that point, and instead recommended distancing myself from Lily. She requested me to assure Lily that I was opting for traditional surrogacy due to my alleged inability to produce healthy eggs. I insisted on a written report, but she claimed she couldn't risk her career. Despite this, she created a fake report under her name and location, stating that I was not fertile enough to produce eggs. Returning home, I showed it to Lily, feigning tears and distress. I conveyed that the doctor suggested surrogacy, and she appeared delighted. I asked her not to inform Zach because he wouldn't agree to using someone else's genes for our baby. Making her my ally, we both started looking for doctors and surrogate mothers. Lily, however, urged me to continue the search as she had to return to her husband. She insisted on finding gorgeous white women as donors. Once she left, I confronted the maid about the birth control pill incident. Tearfully, she confessed to Lily's instructions, but I recorded her admission. I didn't fire her because she was bribed by Lily, threatening to report her to the police if she revealed this to Lily. Now that Lily's not around, I'm hoping to conceive naturally. I'll update you when I have time. Thanks for checking in. Update number 4. Starting with good news. We're expecting twins in February. I know it's a late update. Blame my pregnancy exhaustion. Conceiving on the first cycle after Lily left, Zach and I were overjoyed upon seeing the positive results. Our happiness doubled upon seeing our twins on the ultrasound. Insisting on keeping the pregnancy a secret until the first trimester was over, I explained to Zach about Lily's actions. I played the recorded confession for him, and he was furious but chose not to fire the maid. We minimized conversations with Lily, occasionally updating her on our surrogacy progress, claiming we had put a halt on it. About a month ago, it was Lily and father-in-law's 30th anniversary, and they organized a huge celebration. I proposed using the occasion to announce our pregnancy, as I was about to complete the 3rd month. After the cake cutting, during the toasts, Zach and I announced our family of 2 was soon becoming a family of 4, presenting 3D images of our twins. People showered us with love and blessings. Lily assumed we were pregnant through surrogacy, so her reaction was subdued. Later, she asked why I hadn't informed her about the surrogacy. I suggested discussing it after the party, and once the celebration ended, we gathered as close family members. Lily questioned why I wasn't drinking and demanded to see a picture of the egg donor to examine her facial features. In response, I tightened my dress to reveal my tiny baby bump. Lily, taken aback, lost her composure, yelling and hurling insults at me. Zach intervened, urging her to stop, but she proceeded to disclose all our conversations about infertility and surrogacy. Standing there quietly, I felt the weight of her revelations. Zach played the confession recording for everyone, leaving my father-in-law furious to learn about Lily's malicious actions to prevent my pregnancy. In her defense, Lily expressed her reluctance to see a brown child in her family, causing an uproar among Zach's extended family. Shouting and yelling ensued, primarily between Lily and the others present, including Zach's uncle, brother-in-law, and his wife. Lily continued making outrageous statements, and I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. My father-in-law sternly warned Lily that if she spoke one more word against me, he would divorce her. Zach asserted that she had done enough harm and banned her from our home and future children. Lily left the house, portraying herself as the victim, claiming nobody understood her. My father-in-law and others consoled and apologized to me for Lily's behavior. Despite his apologies, my father-in-law expressed regret for failing to keep Lily in check. Zach and I decided to take a short trip to help me cope with Lily's wrath and the impact on my mental state due to pregnancy hormones. During the trip, I cried uncontrollably, but it eventually aided in my emotional recovery. Despite Lily's attempts to contact Zach and apologize, he remained adamant about not allowing her in during the pregnancy phase. We couldn't trust her, fearing she might disturb me mentally. I wanted to focus on being happy and enjoying my pregnancy. Thank you all for the love and blessings. Please wish me a healthy pregnancy. I'm not surprised that the mother-in-law was cut off towards the end of the story, and the father-in-law gave a strict warning. If she continued with her behavior, he would divorce her. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Feel free to share your comments below. Thank you for your support, and I hope you have a fantastic day. My mother-in-law believed she could outsmart me, convinced that she could manipulate me into signing a loan document and gifting her a house for free. It's as if she thinks I'm incredibly naive, but little does she know, I have a plan that will leave her utterly embarrassed. I don't really care about her opinion on the matter. Before I married my husband, I had high hopes for a positive relationship with my mother-in-law. Having lost my own mother as a teenager, I thought a great mother-in-law could help fill that void. Unfortunately, my expectations were shattered when I met my worst nightmare in human form during my relationship with Bob. When Bob and I began dating, meeting his family was something I eagerly anticipated. Unbeknownst to me, my eagerness might have seemed desperate to some, leading Bob to repeatedly postpone the introduction. Eventually, I met his parents, and I instantly fell in love with them. Maria, Bob's mother initially seemed like someone I wanted to impress, not in the conventional sense, but rather to become her favorite daughter-in-law. From the third month of dating, Bob and I knew we were heading towards marriage due to our compatibility. Like me, Bob and his parents were born in Europe, but they were Americans proficient only in English. Bob had hinted a few times that his mother could become a burden in the future, but I dismissed the warnings. I genuinely cared for her and willingly helped with chores whenever she asked. My motivation stemmed from a desire to amend mistakes from my teenage years, during which my relationship with my own mother was strained. Despite Bob's warnings, I disregarded the possibility of being manipulated by his mother. I aimed to build a strong bond, having had failed attempts with older women in the past. Even when Bob cautioned me, I believed he simply wanted his mother to have some space. However, I started noticing signs that she might be taking advantage of our relationship. For instance, Bob's mother would intentionally neglect her dishes on the days she knew I would be visiting, hinting at a hidden agenda. Upon my arrival, I willingly took on the responsibility of doing the dishes and tidying up her chaotic kitchen. The same applied to grocery shopping. Adding to the complexity, Maria was disabled and relied on a limited disability check. Despite its inadequacy, she would frequently call me to borrow money. My inability to say no, coupled with my fear of being perceived as a bad person, led me to comply. Over the 2 years of Bob and I dating, my relationship with his mother flourished. Even when I sensed that she was taking advantage of me, I hesitated to stop my actions. The constant borrowing, whether it was $50 or $100, didn't bother me because I wanted Maria to be content. She had come to view me as her own, and I guess she exploited that connection. Deep down, every smile I elicited from Maria made me feel like I was rectifying the mistakes of my troubled teenage years. As a teenager, I unknowingly caused my single-parent mother a lot of distress. It wasn't until I grew older and she passed away that I understood the gravity of my actions. Despite her efforts, I constantly compared her to others and eventually ran away from home. I didn't return until her demise, leaving her with a skewed perception of her motherhood. This painful realization fueled my actions toward Maria. Eventually, Bob and I got married, marking one of the happiest moments of my life. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was the joy of having a supportive family to fall back on. I could officially call Maria Mom, and as a nurse, I became her personal caregiver, bringing us even closer. Little did I know that Maria didn't reciprocate my feelings as much as I loved her. She seemed to be the type who went above and beyond, even with those she cherished. About a year into our marriage, Maria began urging us to have children. Bob and I, however, had decided to wait at least 3 years before starting a family. When we explained our reasoning to Maria, little did I know that this decision would unravel a new chapter in our relationship. She vehemently opposed our decision, immediately presenting us with a litany of reasons why we should start a family sooner rather than later. At that time, Bob had been laid off from his job, placing the financial burden squarely on my shoulders. Despite our own challenges, Maria continued to call, requesting to borrow money. She often complained about the meager disability funds she received. In her texts, she acknowledged her debts and promised to repay as soon as she had the means. Strangely, I never bothered to keep track, lending money out of love rather than expecting repayment. Maria, however, consistently reminded me of the amounts she owed, perhaps attempting to reassure me of her intention to settle the debts. Initially, I thought Maria's insistence on us having children early would subside after we explained that we weren't ready. However, each visit to her house or dinner turned into an opportunity for her to bring up the topic. Initially tolerable, her persistence escalated to sending YouTube videos, baby pictures, and images of happy families. It became overwhelming, prompting me to confide in Bob. His attempt to address the issue only worsened it, as Maria began offering unsolicited advice, even recommending fertility doctors. Her assumptions reached a breaking point when she suggested I might be barren, throwing a tantrum. Frustrated by her incessant interference, I distanced myself. I reduced visits and limited phone calls to once or twice a week, ensuring Bob was present during our conversations. Fortunately, after 2 years of marriage, Maria seemed to grasp the gravity of her behavior. She accepted that we would start a family when we felt ready, not succumbing to her wishes. Even though our closeness had diminished, Maria remained in my thoughts, and I extended help whenever possible. By this time, she had recovered and resumed work, reducing her financial requests. About 4 months later, with Maria back at work, Bob secured a high-paying job in another country. Gradually, I found myself rekindling a closer connection with Maria. This time around, our relationship seemed to have transcended the need for favors, and she was now capable of handling tasks she couldn't before. While I had friends to hang out with, I believe that a mother holds a unique place in our lives, distinct from our friendships. Thinking that Maria no longer required my assistance, I was blindsided when I discovered her attempt to deceive me into signing her home loan papers. For weeks, she had been discussing a purchase, leading me to trust her without confirming the details. Initially, she mentioned needing my signature for a car, but one day, I stumbled upon a message on her phone that revealed the truth. The papers were not for a car, but for a home loan. Enraged, I contemplated confronting her immediately but feared the hurtful words that might ensue. Instead, I kept silent and left after she returned with snacks. Back at my apartment, I pondered ways to outsmart Maria and eventually devised a plan. I created a document in our country's native language, knowing she was proficient only in English and wouldn't understand its content. When Maria called, stating she had obtained the papers from the dealer and inviting me to sign them, I seized the opportunity. Carrying the bogus document, I requested a copy in my native language. Maria, unsuspecting, agreed. I left her house, claiming I needed to print the subtitled document, and returned minutes later with the fabricated paper I had prepared the previous night. Upon my return, I convinced Maria that we should both sign this document instead of the original home loan papers. Obligingly, she agreed. Rushing off to work in the afternoon, I promised to drop by later in the evening. When I returned to Maria's house that night, I anticipated her realization of the ruse, expecting her to send the papers back to the company. To my astonishment, her reaction was quite unexpected. I attended a small house party that Maria had organized, unaware that she was celebrating the successful signing of the house loan papers. She had invited her friends, and the atmosphere was filled with laughter and drinks. Little did I know, everyone in the room, except my father-in-law, was privy to Maria's deceptive act. Upon entering the house, I sensed that Maria wasn't thrilled to see me. Her attention was solely on her guests. To add insult to injury, they openly discussed the loan in my presence. Realizing the situation, I decided to play ignorant. I inquired about the loan paper Maria mentioned, and she burst into laughter, even mockingly calling me a poor thing. She reveled in her successful trickery, claiming she duped me into signing her home loan papers under the guise of getting a new car. I allowed her to revel in her moment of triumph for a brief moment before revealing that I was well aware of her deception. Even if I hadn't known Maria's intention, I would have figured it out the day I signed. After all, everything on the document was plainly written in English. I couldn't help but wonder how she planned to get my signature without me reading the document first. Opting for a more dignified response, I remained calm despite her attempts to provoke a reaction. To spoil her celebratory mood, I challenged Maria to translate a line from the document she held. Initially hesitant, she complied after sensing my determination. The first line revealed my awareness. I am attempting to deceive my daughter-in-law, but I've been busted because she already knows. As she read out the damning line, Maria's eyes widened in anger. Without wasting time, she erupted into a tirade, hurling insults and regretting her son's marriage to me. Her hurtful words cut deep, and I couldn't stand being humiliated in front of the guests. I fired back, asserting my innocence and refusing to be blamed for her deceptive actions. I harbored no regrets for exposing the truth, considering it a necessary lesson for Maria. Maria understood that convincing me to sign her home loan papers would be a challenge. Resorting to deception, she tricked me into signing them, thinking it was a clever move on her part. Unfortunately, this maneuver led to significant tension between Bob and me. Maria, likely playing the victim, must have informed Bob that I insulted and humiliated her in front of her friends. It has been a week, and Bob refuses to answer my calls or respond to messages. The frustrating part is that he hasn't heard my side of the story, and despite repeated attempts, all my calls go straight to voicemail. He was supposed to return home last weekend, but he hasn't, and there's been no communication. Despite feeling regretful about the strange situation with Bob, I stand by my decision not to regret exposing Maria's deception. The question I have is whether I am in the wrong for outsmarting Maria and responding assertively to her actions. Despite her being my mother-in-law and an elder, I couldn't let her manipulate the situation. I'm eager to hear your comments. Update number 1. I appreciate the comments on my original post. It hasn't been easy since last week when Bob returned home with an attitude. Despite my attempts to explain everything, he insists that it was wrong of me to humiliate his mother. He seems to overlook the fact that his mom tried to deceive me into signing her home loan papers. Bob is so angry that he believes I should have called him when I discovered Maria's intentions. I haven't spoken to or visited Maria since then, still shocked at how she treated me despite all I did for her. The most frustrating part is that Bob is now threatening divorce if I don't apologize to Maria. In a heated argument 2 days ago, he left the house in the morning with some belongings. Later that evening, I discovered he was at his mother's house with a woman from his past, boldly posting pictures on Facebook. They appeared to be enjoying themselves while I dealt with loneliness. I expected Bob to understand the situation from my perspective and acknowledge his mother's wrongdoing. He hasn't spoken to her or condemned her actions, and for 2 days, Bob has been elusive since expressing that he'd rather lose me than let a woman jeopardize his relationship with his parents. It's painful to hear Bob now perceive me as a homewrecker, especially when he knows the genuine reasons behind my compassionate treatment of his mother. I had confided in him about my past with my own mom, and he used that vulnerability against me, hurling insults and uttering things I never expected from him. Even if I were to apologize to Maria for exposing her deceit, the dynamics between us can never return to how they used to be. I can't envision myself getting along with her or any of Bob's family members ever again. While those who know me often describe me as kind and soft, I'm contemplating a change. I don't want to be perceived as the soft, weak jade any longer, but the dilemma lies in whether being rude to Maria is reason enough for Bob to consider divorce. I love Bob deeply and don't want to lose him. Please advise me on what course of action I should take. Although Bob sounded serious, part of me wonders if he's bluffing, or is this an ominous sign of something worse? Update number 2. Following some suggestions to talk to Bob, I decided to confront him at his mother's house. To my surprise, Lisa, Bob's ex-girlfriend, was there with him and his parents, evident from their laughter within. Bob was furious at my unexpected appearance, asserting that I was no longer welcome there. In an attempt to salvage our relationship, he demanded that I apologize to his mother. Desperate to make things work and missing Bob immensely, I reluctantly apologized to Maria. However, it wasn't heartfelt, and Maria insisted on writing an apology for me to read. To my shock, the apology Maria penned contained demeaning content, prompting an immediate change of heart. I walked out of the house, and Maria, Bob, and Lisa laughed as I left. Betrayed and hurt, I texted Bob about my readiness for divorce and contacted a divorce lawyer. Instead of begging or clarifying, Bob's response was a simple okay. Before meeting Maria, Bob had mentioned that Maria held affection for Lisa, but they had ended things because he felt Lisa wasn't the one for him. Reflecting on my actions, I realized how foolish I had been. Despite suspicions, I had often dismissed the thought of Bob cheating on me. He always took calls from his parents in my presence, but for other calls, he would excuse himself to answer outside. In hindsight, there were signs of a possible affair, but I had brushed them aside. not wanting to succumb to baseless assumptions that could ruin a marriage. I refrained from jumping to conclusions until I was certain about Bob's actions. Even though Bob wasn't cheating, taking Lisa to his mother's house felt like a direct insult. In my view, divorce seems to be the best resolution, and I wish there was a way to teach Maria a lesson, but I'll let her be. Update number 3. I want to express my gratitude to all of you for your invaluable support. Among the numerous comments, the suggestion that stood out was to make Maria pay back all the money she borrowed. After gathering proof, I decided to sue her. Before filing the case, I messaged her, demanding repayment, but she didn't respond. I also texted Bob, and his dismissive response pushed me to proceed with the legal action. I filed the case and waited for Maria to be served. The sum she owed me exceeded $3,500, and I had evidence in the form of text messages. Maria's reaction upon being served was furious. She bombarded my phone with calls. I deliberately avoided answering. Bob and his father also reached out, suggesting an out-of-court settlement, and Bob professed his love. Disgusted, I blocked him, but he persisted with another number. The day of the court hearing arrived, and Maria showed up with her entire family, including Bob and his father as witnesses. They glared at me while the judge questioned me. I explained myself, but to my surprise, Maria denied borrowing any money and even claimed she used to borrow from Bob, not me. I presented the printed messages to the judge, but Maria laughed, dismissing them as potentially forged. Fortunately, the detailed content of the messages, mentioning disability amounts and other specifics, convinced the judge. The court ruled in my favor, ordering Maria to repay the $3,750. This experience has taught me not to love someone more than they love me. I'm relieved to have my money back and can start anew. Dragging Maria to court was a satisfying experience. She had avoided bringing up the money after resuming work, and I hadn't asked for it, given my initial intention of helping her out of love. However, realizing the lack of genuine affection from Maria and her family, I chose to stand up for myself. Thank you all for your support. I've become stronger, wiser, and smarter because of you. Regarding the divorce, as soon as the papers are ready, I'll be officially ending things with Bob. You guys are the best, and I'm grateful for the recovery of nearly $4,000. I'd love to hear your stories about helping in-laws that backfired in the comments section below. I narrate stories like this every day, covering in-law dramas, inheritance disputes, and wedding fiascos. If you want more videos, hit the subscribe button. It greatly supports the channel. Thank you, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Remember, it's cool to be kind. See you.